Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video we're going to talk about abstracting shapes and negative space. And we're going to use this picture of this step stool that you can find in the course shell. Most of the time in this class I want you to draw from life. I want you to draw from reality. In this case we're going to use this picture from the course shell so that we're all working from the same complicated object. Also, having a 2D image, I think, will help you a little bit with this concept. So we're all going to draw from the same step stool. And the idea of this exercise is we're going to simplify this step stool, this super complicated, all of these little bits and parts and things coming out. We're going to simplify this into shapes and negative shapes, which we will talk more about, and hopefully come up with a more accurate drawing through that process. So you may have noticed in the course shell there are some other images that I provided you. And we're going to use these images to think about this step stool, to think about simplifying complex objects. This first one is kind of our envelope method from the block-in video. And then this one we're going to call abstracting the form. So the idea of this image is we can take this super complicated physical object. The way that you would do this in real life is you would squint your eyes and simplify these forms. And when you squint, you limit the amount of values that your eye can see. So when you're looking at something in real life and you squint, it will look something like this. It will simplify the values in the object that you're looking at and make it less complex to try to draw. So we're going to start with this envelope image, and for this part I want you to use your wet media, whatever that is. Could be a highlighter, could be a marker, it could be watercolor. Whatever your wet media value media is that you have collected, that's what we're going to use for this first step. And the idea here is that this step stool is impossible to deal with on its own. So how do we break it down and simplify it into the most simple forms and get out of that object brain, get out of that thinking about this as a step stool, thinking about making it look like a step stool? And how do we look at it as just a series of forms and shapes and puzzle pieces that you can assemble on the page and come up with something that's probably a more accurate step stool, but to get you away from thinking about the step stool. So we're going to start with that wet media, and we're going to do our best to draw this blob. And what I want you to look at is, I just want you to look at this as a shape. I just want you to look at and think about the proportions, how big this is, what this angle is, what this angle is, what this sort of looks like. We're going to try to disconnect from object brain and just think about this as a blob that we can draw. We're eventually going to fill this in all the way. So whatever is easier for you, if you want to fill it in as you go, if you want to color this in as you go, that's fine. I'm sort of going to try to find these edges a little bit. And what I'm thinking about as I'm doing this is I'm looking at these edges. I'm looking at the proportion from here to here. I'm looking at the proportion of here to here. I'm looking at this angle. I'm looking at this angle. And I'm just going through, similar to the contour line drawing or the blind contour drawing, where I'm just sort of trying to feel those edges. If you have watercolor, it may be easier to sort of do this in big movements, to get into this in big movements. All right, so I want to fill in my blob. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is go to my fine liner or felt tip pen, my waterproof pen. And the idea of this part is we're going to draw the negative shapes. We're going to draw everything that's not the step stool. We're going to draw all of the shapes that are grass. So I'm going to come in here and try to cut out that shape. Then I'm going to come in here and try to cut out that shape. Because I can draw a box or a weird shape, right? I can draw that shape. I can draw that shape. I can draw that shape. Now, can I draw a really complicated step stool? I don't know. But if I take the negative shapes, one shape at a time, it's forcing me to look at the things that are not the step stool. So if I come down here, that looks like and it may not match up perfectly with your blob. That's okay. Now I'm going to draw this shape off of that one. This leg sits a little bit higher up, so keep an eye on that one. That one goes a little bit higher off of the blob. I think this one is somewhere around in here. So again, I'm looking at these as puzzle pieces. I'm looking at the end product a little bit because you can't not, right? You can't not look at the step stool. But I'm trying to focus on the grass. I'm trying to just draw the grass. And this could be, this little section down here could be like a wood burning stove, or it could be any kind of an object. It could be a lot of different things, right? Some kind of a mechanical object. So I'm trying to just look at these abstract shapes and how they fit together. I'm watching my edges where things line up. I'm just looking at these angles. Can I match that angle? Can I match that curve? Can I match that angle? What is this angle right here? And I'm only drawing the internal shapes right now. Then we'll come back through and draw the outside. If you're drawing the outside, that's okay. All right, so those are all of my negative shapes. Now I'm going to come back around and draw my outline. And this is similar to that contour line drawing, even the blind contour drawing, because I'm checking back and forth, right? That continuous line drawing, this is similar to that continuous line drawing. So I'm going, how far up does that go? And don't just follow your blob. Make updates. Remember, we can make revisions at every stage. All right, so we've got something that looks like that. Now for the last step, we need to go back to the original photograph. Let's see if I have a pencil. That'll be dark enough. I want you to add the shadow shapes. So I want you to come back with a pencil or a marker and just come in and add these shadow shapes. It's not dark enough. The ballpoint might work well for this. See, this is where when we add in those shadow shapes, we can start to get a more realistic drawing. Because we're defining the forms, right? So that the shadows, the light and shadow, define the forms. All right, so we get something like that. So go through this process if you haven't been going through it along with me. We want to think about, go back to that envelope method. We want to think about abstracting the form, grouping all the forms together, trying to draw an abstract blob, which will get you out of that object brain, get you away from thinking about this complicated step stool. Then we're going to merge all the shapes together and cut out the negative shapes. Cut out, just draw the grass. Then come back in at the end and add our shadow shapes, add our shadow forms to help give our image some dimension, to give it some shadow and highlight. So do this one from the images in the course shell. And then I want you to do one other complicated object from life, from real life. Could be a chair, could be a light stand from the studio, something with a lot of negative shapes. And I want you to go through this same process with that object from real life. And then follow the next steps in the course shell, and I'll see you next week.